Hello everyone, I'm Kamil Khan, Assistant Professor, BCA Science Department, Avidananda Senior College. Today we'll discuss subject Core Java. Topics will be covered in this session: defining your own classes, user-defined classes, access specifiers, array of objects, constructor, constructor overloading, use of this keyword, static blocks, static fields, static methods, predefined classes, objects, class, methods, and the other functions, and inner classes and garbage collection. Object-oriented programming concept involves programming using objects. An object represents an entity in the real world that can be distinctly identified. For example, a student, a desk, a circle, a button, and even a loan can all be viewed as objects. The state of an object, also known as its properties or attributes, is represented by data fields with their current values. A circle object, for example, has a data field radius, which is the property that characterizes a circle. A rectangle object has the data field width and height, which are the properties that characterize a rectangle. The behavior of an object, also as its actions, is defined by methods. To invoke a method on an object is to ask the object to perform an action. For example, you may define methods name getArea and getPerimeter for circle objects. A circle object may invoke getArea to return its area and getPerimeter to return its perimeter. These all are the methods. We can also call the function, action, or method, properties, attributes, or variable, or field, whatever we can say. Objects of the same type are defined using common class. A class is a template or a blueprint or a contract that defines what an object's data fields and methods will be. An object is an instance of a class. You can create many instances of a class. Creating an instance is referred to as instantiation. Means we are creating an object from the class. Object is an instance of a class. Okay, the term object and instance are often interchangeable. The relation between the classes and objects is analogous to that between an apple pie recipe and apple pies. You can make as many apple pies as you want from a single recipe. Objects, as diagram shows, class name circle, in that we are defining radius as a data field and method is a getArea. We can create objects, many objects, and all objects having both state and behavior, means fields and behavior. The state defines the object and the behavior defines the object. Thus, what will be the output of that method? Now we will discuss about the class. Classes are the constructs that define objects of same type. A Java class uses variables to define data fields and methods to define behaviors. Additionally, a class provides a special type of methods known as constructors, which are invoked to construct objects from the class. In class, we can declare variable data field, and after that, constructor. Constructor is a method, but we can say constructor is a special type of method, special type of class, uh, function, which having same name as a class name, and we can pass the parameters with that constructors like functions. No need of the return type of that method or constructor. And there is an so many types of constructor: default constructor, parameterized constructor, default parameterized constructor, and so on. The circle class is a different from all the other classes you have seen thus far. It does not have main methods and therefore cannot be run. It is merely a definition for the circle object. The class that contains the main method will be referred to in this book for convenience as the main class. The illustration of class templates and objects in can be standardized using unified modeling language UML notation. This notation is called a UML class diagram or simply a class diagram. We can say simple circle class. Simple circle class having the method simple circle constructor, which is default constructor. After that we are passing the parameter in the constructor, which is initialized by the new radius double values, and get area, get perimeter. These are the methods, and set radius is also the method for the class. Simple class, the program contains two classes. The first of this test simple circle. This is just a test simple circle which we are adding the main class. Its sole purpose is to test the second class simple circle, such as a program that uses the class is often referred to as a client of that class. When you run the program, the Java runtime system invokes the main method in the main class. You can put the two classes into one file, but only one class in the file can be public class. Furthermore, the public class must have the same name as the file name. Therefore, the file name is test simple circle.java. Since the test simple circle is public, each class in the source code is compiled into the .class file. When you compile test simple circle.java, two class files will be generated. This is a combined code for the. We'll skip this defining classes and creating objects. We'll in this we'll discuss about the we are creating the here is a class TV in the channel volume level, and constructor default constructor, and there are so many methods. Okay, set channel, set value, channel up. In that we are creating an object TV, TV1, TV2, and we are calling the all methods which is available for the different objects. Constructors, now we'll discuss about the constructors are a special kind of a method that are invoked to construct objects. Okay, which is default constructor, or we can say parameterized constructor. Constructor with no parameters is referred to as a no argument constructor. Constructor must have the same name as the class itself. Constructor do not have a return type, not even a void. Constructors are invoked using the new operator when an object is created. Constructors play the role of initializing objects. Creating object using constructor, when we use new keyword after the class, before the class name, and adding the parenthesis, it means that we are calling the constructor and initializing the values or initializing the memory to the object. Default constructor, a class may be defined without constructors. In this case, a no argument constructor with an empty body is implicitly defined class. This constructor called a default constructor. is provided automatically only if no constructors are explicitly defined in the class. Declaring object reference variables. Objects are accessed via the object's reference variables, which contain reference to the objects. To reference an object, assign the object to the reference variable. Class is a reference type, which means that the variable of the class type can reference an instance of the class. To declare a reference variable, use syntax class name and the object name. Declaring and creating object is simple. Step: name of the class, assign object reference, whatever the new keyword, after new keyword class name and parenthesis. Whenever we are writing class name, it means that we are calling the constructor. Accessing objects member, referring the object data is done using the dot operator or object member access operator. Object refers reference variable which is already defined by the class, and invoke methods using the objects. We can directly invoke if we are not adding the static keyword before the method or variable. We can create an object and then we can access the methods and variables. In this we created mm, object of what, circle class, my circle. There is no value. Okay, after that, when we assigning the value using the new keyword and passing to the circle 5.0, it is a value, the radius value, and that initialized to the our variable radius. Reference, assign object reference variables, it is equal sign which will be assigned by the circle. We are declaring again the your circle name with a variable which does not have any uh, constructor value, constructor parameter, but it will be already predefined value. We are assigning that 100. In this, no value for the circle, now we are assigning 100 for the value. Question: the data field radius is referred to as an instance variable because it is dependent on the specific instance. For the same reason, the method getArea is referred to as an instance method because you can invoke it only on a specific instance. The object on which an instance method is invoked is calling object. Recall that you use method name arguments or any method. All the methods used before this chapter are static methods, which are defined using the static keyword. Without object, we can access the anywhere. It must be invoked from the object using. But if you are using this data fields, we can initialize data fields string, int, boolean, character. If you want to assign the null values later, you can assign the null values for the object, no problem. Default value for the data fields, also you can define the default values which is already defined for the uh, no default okay, no default values will be assigned to the local variables, but whenever we are initializing in the class using the constructor, it can be possible. Java assigns the compiler constructor variable initialize because x and y does not have any values. Difference between variables of primitive data types and object types. Every variable represents a memory location that holds a value. When you declare a variable, you are telling the compiler what type of value the variable can hold. For a variable of a primitive type, the value is of the primitive type. For a variable of reference type, value is a reference to where an object is located. Means we are referring the object. Okay, in primitive data type, we can directly initialize the values to the variable garbage collection. As shown in the previous figure, after the assignment statement C1 and C2 points to the same object referenced by C2, the object previously referenced by C1 is no longer referenced. Okay, but this object is known as garbage. Garbage is automatically collected by JVM. Okay, whenever we are assigning C1, assigning for the circle C1 and 5, and radius values for the C2 is 9. When we initializing again, C1 is equal to C2, so C1 is also allocate the value 9, but radius value is radius value is 5 is garbage. If you know what an object is no longer needed, you can explicitly assign null to a reference variable for the object. The JVM will automatically collect the space if the object is not referenced by any variable. Java also provide built-in classes, uh, predefined classes, we can say. Java provides system-independent encapsulation of date and time in the package java.util, which having class date. You can use the date class to create an instance for the current date and time, and use its toString method to return the date and time as a string. Date constructor that object for the current time. Date elapsed time that gives time in milliseconds elapsing since January 1970. ToString returns a string representing date time. Get time returns the number of milliseconds since January 1, 1970. Set time sets a new elapsed time in the object. There are so many methods, random, uh, actually maths class, and method of random class are the point 2D. These are Java FX geometry package containing point 2D. There are so many classes, predefined classes we use. Also, we'll discuss about the instance variables and methods. Instance variable belongs to specific instance. Instance methods are invoked by any instance of the class. Static variable, constants, and methods. Static variables are shared by all the instances of the class. Static methods are not tied to a specific object. Because of this, a static method cannot access instance members of the class. Static constants are final variables shared by all the instances of the class. A non-static or instance variable is tied to a specific instance. Whenever we are declaring a static variable, static constants, or static methods, we no need to create an object of the class. Static variable stores values for the variables in common memory location. Because of this common location, if one object changes the value of static variable, all objects of the same class are affected. Java supports static method as well as static variables. Static method can be called without creating an instance of the class. To declare static variable, constants, and methods, use the static modifier. For example, the constant pi in the maths class is defined as final static double, and we are declaring the value of the pi. There is an example for the circle class where we are creating the static data members. Okay, static instances. An instance method can invoke an instance or static method, access an instance or static data field. A static method can invoke a static method and access a static data field. However, a static method cannot invoke an instance method or access an instance data field. Since the static methods and static data fields don't belong to particular object. Visibility of modifiers and accessor utilities methods. You can use the public visibility modifier for classes, methods, and data fields to be denote that they can be accessed from anywhere, any other classes. Actually, we have default modifiers, visibility modifier, protected, private, and public. From that, public can be public visibility modifier for the classes. Anyone can access the methods or class variables. If no visibility modifier is used, then by default the classes, methods, and the data fields are accessible by any class in the same package. This is known as package private or package access. Packages can be used to organize classes. To do so, you need to add the following line as the first statement in the program. Package name. If a class is defined without a package statement, it is said to be placed in the default package. By default, the class variable or method can be accessed by any class in the same package. Public. The class data or method is visible to any class, any package. Private, the data or method can be accessed only by the declaring class. Public, getter and setter, mutator and accessor methods are used to read and modify private properties. For example, we are declaring C1 class, C2 class, and C3 class. The private modifier restricts the access to within a class. The default modifier restricts access to within a package. The public modifier enables unrestricted access, means anyone can access. The default modifier on a class restricts access to the within a package. The public modifier enables unrestricted access. Note that an object cannot access its private members as shown in figure B. It's okay, however, if the object is declared in its own class. The private modifier applies only to the members of a class. The public modifiers can apply to a class or members of a class using the modifiers public and private on local variables would cause a public error. In the most cases, the constructor should be public. However, if you want to prohibit the user from creating an instance of a class, use a private constructor. For example, there is no reason to create an instance of the math class because all of its data field and methods are static. To prevent the user from creating objects of the math class, the constructor in java.lang.math is defined as a private. Data field encapsulation. Making data field private protected data. Making data fields private helps to make a code easy to maintain since the client programs cannot be modified them. To prevent direct modification of data fields, declaring the data fields private is known as data field encapsulation. To make a private data field accessible, provide a getter method to return its value. To enable a private data field to be updated, provide a setter method to set a new value. A getter method is also referred to as an accessor and a setter to a mutator. Data field encapsulation. We are declining the radius. Sign indicates that it is a private modifier minus. The radius of the circle default value is 1.0. The number of circle object created constructor default circle. In this example, we are assigning the value radius for 1, and which will be private data member. Here, uh, getter and setter methods are both both methods are the public, and we are calling that methods inside the main function. Passing objects to the methods. Passing by value for primitive type value. The value is passed to the parameter. Okay. Passing by value for reference type value. The value is the reference to the object. Understand? Whenever we are passing by the value for primitive type value, the value is passed to the parameter. We are assigning the value to the variable, or we can say we are assigning the values to the parameter. Passing by value for reference type value, the value is a reference to the object. Means we are we are referring that object. Okay. In this method, uh, 5.0 is the parameter for the constructor, and that value is initialized to the variable. Now we are referring the object as a parameter. Okay, not we are not assigning the value to the object. We are referring the object which is passed by the as a parameter. Okay, it is a reference, not the value. Array of objects. An array of objects is actually an array of reference variables. So invoking circle, where circle array 1 dot get involves two levels of referencing, as shown in the next figure. We'll see circle array reference to the entire array, circle 1 reference to the circle object. Here circle array is a reference, it is a object, name of the object. And if we are accessing using the index, because array starts with the 0 till 9, 10 objects. The objects is referring the 0, 1, 2, 3 till 9. Array object array of object will be initialized using the for loop. Whatever the initialization by the constructor, we assign the object of that constructor. An array of object is actually an array of reference variables. When an array of objects is created using the new operator, each element in the array is a reference variable with the default value of null. See, we are initializing the random values to the uh, radius using the initialization. Here, this is the method for the print method, and here we are uh, taking the summation of the all areas of the circle. Immutable objects. Normally you create an object and allow its contents to the change later. However, occasionally it is desirable to create an object whose contents cannot be changed once the object has been created. We call such an object immutable object. The value cannot be changed, or the content of the object cannot be changed, and its class has immutable class. If a class is immutable, then all its data field must be private, and it cannot contain public setter methods for any data field. Class with all private data fields and no mutators is not necessarily immutable. Here the date we are return type of this class is date. As shown in the following code, the data field date created is returned using the get created method. This is a reference to the date object. Okay, date is a class, and that date class object, through this reference the content of date created can be changed. For the class to be immutable, it must meet the following requirements. All data field must be private. There cannot be any mutator methods for data fields. No accessor methods can return a reference to a data field that is mutable. Scope of the variable. The scope of instance and static variable is the entire class. They can be declared anywhere inside a class. The scope of a variable, that is a variable defined in a method, starts from its declaration and continues to the end of the block that contains the variable. A local variable must be initialized explicitly before it can be used. Here we are declaring private double radius is equal to 1. The variable radius and method find area can be declared in any order. If a local variable has the same name as a class variable, the local variable takes precedence and the class variable with the same name is hidden. After that, we'll discuss about the this keyword. The this keyword is the name of the reference that refers to an object itself. One common use of this keyword is a reference a class hidden data fields. Another common use of this keyword to enable a constructor to invoke another constructor of the same class. Here is an example. We are returning this red dot radius means it is the variable of the same class but object of this same variable. A reference that hidden data fields. These keyword can be used to reference class hidden data fields. For example, data field name is often used as the parameter name in a setter method for the data field. In this case, the data field is hidden in the setter method. You need to reference the hidden data field name in the method in order to set a new value to it. A hidden static variable can be accessed using the keyword this. This keyword gives us a way to reference the object that invokes an instance method. To invoke f1.setter method, we are assigning the 10 is executed, which assigns the value of the parameter I to the data field I of this calling object f1. The keyword this refers to the object that invokes the instance method as shown and below. Calling overloaded constructors. This keyword can be used to invoke another constructor of the same class. For example, you can rewrite the circle class as follows. In this dot radius is equal to radius. This keyword is used to reference the hidden data field radius of the object being constructed. And in this circle, this in parameter, this keyword is used to invoke another constructor. It means we are calling two super constructor of the uh, or the we are calling second constructor of the that class. So we have completed here our chapter. If you have any doubt, any questions, you can comment in the comment box. Thank you so much.